Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillahi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in wa ba'd. So we're on page 79, the fourth element of the five elements, studying. What were the first three elements? What were the first three elements? All right, that was number three. That was number one and number two.
Wasn't one of them about reading?
Reading is number one. Writing is number two. Memorizing is number three. All right. Number four is studying. This means to actually take the class. All right. And I mentioned all of these, like for example, the reading, writing, and memorizing, because all of that precedes taking the class. Because you go to a class prepared. You don't go to a class learning, like trying to, figure it out as you go along. You go, you want to study Nahu, you try to sit down and you take the book that you want to study, you memorize it, you try to read it and understand it. So that way you can deal with any issues that you're having. You test your understanding, and what you understood, you understood. What you didn't understand, you can try to see what it is that you're not understanding and fix it. But you have to have a good knowledge of the book before you go into the class. So all of that is going to precede actually studying the book. My advice is that you never ever study a book that you haven't memorized. If you haven't memorized the book, then you have no right to study it. That's that. Because what are you gonna do? You're gonna memorize the notes to what? You're memorizing notes to connect the understanding and the explanation of the book to what? You don't have the book memorized. So what are you connecting it to in your mind? Nothing. You're connecting it to nothing. So you have the book memorized. And when you sit there with the explanation from the sheikh gives you an explanation. You take notes. And you memorize the notes. And that way the notes, you can connect it to what you memorized. All right.
The woman downstairs wants you to have the headset on.
I'll just put the headset on, because this thing. What, you just run a 100-yard dash or something?
You wired two outlets and Pampers and a bunch of stuff.
That brother got to deal with stuff, man. All right. You got that now. So you memorize the book, you study it, and then you what? You write notes and you memorize the notes that help you understand the book. But again, those notes have to be connected to something in your mind. If the book is not there, then it's not connecting to anything. You can sit there and go study Al-Ajurumiyya. And trust me, you're going to have a nice time, and you haven't memorized the method trying to study and understand Al-Ajurumiyya. Because you're not connecting what you're studying, you're not connecting it to anything. There's nothing there because you haven't memorized it. So you memorize the method first, and your whole point of understanding, like studying, is to what? To understand what you memorize. That's it. And once you understand it, now you start. That's why I said I don't want to use that thing.
I dropped the mic, no more.
All right. So after you memorize the method, you have to study it. The most important aspect of studying a book is the teacher that you choose to teach you. First of all, you should only study with people of the Sunnah. Very clear.
Sajid sent me a...
Yeah, take the invitation and we'll try to do it after Salat al-Isha. I'll send him a message. Yeah. All right. Accept. And now when you open up YouTube, the Institute YouTube channel will be connected to your YouTube channel.
Oh, you hired me.
Yeah, we're going to fire you. As soon as it doesn't work, you're fired. All right, so if you study with people that follow all the different misguided groups, they end up including in the lessons a lot of their misguidance in a way that is difficult to detect. Now, a lot of the people that try to use like excuses like, oh, but Sheikh Fulan, he studied with people that weren't from the Sunnah, and Sheikh Fulan. All right, that's not, like, you're studying the religion as an ignorant Westerner who trusts everybody, every Muslim. You make sure that the people that you study with in the beginning are people that are going to teach you what? Correctly. You can go study Al-Ajurumiyya, and by the time that you finish Al-Ajurumiyya, be out there dancing at the graves, just because you had the wrong teacher. And that's how easy it is to lead people astray, especially when you're ignorant and you trust that person. And the problem with studying a person is, the person might be very strong in Nahu, but he's very deviant in his aqidah. So what happens is, as you're studying Nahu with him, you build up a love and respect for the person. He's your teacher. How can you not respect the person who teaches you? If you don't respect the person who teaches you and gives you knowledge, then what type of person are you? You understand? So obviously you're going to build that respect and that rapport and that love for the person. He's giving you knowledge of the deen, and you start to trust him. And then you say, oh no, man, he's not what the people say. And then he starts, what? Because most of these people in misguidance, if they know that you're trying to follow the sunnah, they're not just going to come out and just start throwing out misguidance at you. Nah, they're going to come out with, what they know that, that you would accept. And then they'll start to what? Start to slide it in little by little, So you have to be careful with the person that you study with. And not just because he's a person of the sunnah. Because even a person from the sunnah does not mean he's a good teacher, So again, you have to go and look at the people who study with the person, how much they benefited, because some people, they just their purpose of the class is just to do revision. So what does he do? He wants to revise everything he studied in Nahu and just throw it on the students. You don't benefit like that. You have to focus on the teacher that's trying to get you to understand, not a teacher who's just trying to revise Nahu. So you have to be very picky with the teacher. So if you study with people that follow all these different misguided groups, they end up including in the lessons a lot of their misguidance in a way that is difficult to detect. And if you want a good example of that, go read the explanation of Al-Ajrumiyya by Al-Kafarawi. The explanation of, here, you would think like, okay, he's explaining Al-Ajrumiyya. What could go wrong, right? And then if you go in there in the explanation, he completely negates the speech of Allah. No. And he says that the speech of Allah is not actual speech, it's talk, because he's explaining what? He's explaining kalam. وَمَا مَعْنَى الْكَلَامِ. Again, you look at it, this is how Al-Ajrumiyya starts off. What's the first line of Al-Ajrumiyya? Al-Kalamu lafdun murakkabun mufidun min wadih. Al-Kalam. So you start off with what? Al-Kalam. So right out the gate, and he's going to start explaining to you what Kalam is. And then he's going to try to tell you that no, Kalam is not what we think it is. Well, what Kalam with us is words and sounds, but with Allah, and now he's going to go off on the deep end, right? And there you go, right in the explanation. And the thing about it is what is one of the best explanations of Al-Ajrumiyya? No, Al-Kafarawi. Where do you think Sheikh Ahmed bin Thabit took the ta'rifat for his book Tuhfat al-Wasabiyya from? From Al-Kafarawi. So he took all that stuff out, so you don't have to go read it. So yeah, in that case, it is the best. But Al-Kafarawi, he did the Arab of the entire method. But there you go. So if you're not, knowledgeable about what he's saying, it can misguide you. Then you get a teacher who's also on that same misguidance, and he goes and teaches you and explains this even more further and confuses you. And next thing you know, no, Allah doesn't talk. Now this is what you say. This is what you say because of a misguided person, right? Oh no, speech is not words and sounds. Speech is just, it goes through the heart. It's, and then why did he say alhama? Why did he say takallama or kallama? You know what I'm saying? So all this stuff, but you won't have the knowledge to refute that type of stuff. So Allah musta'an. But anyways, so they end up including in their lessons a lot of their misguidance in a way that is difficult to detect. A famous statement by Muhammad ibn Sirin should be the statement you live by. حدثنا حسن ibn Rabi', and this is taken out of the Muqaddimah of Sahih Muslim. حدثنا حسن ibn Rabi', حدثنا حماد ibn Zayd, and Ayyub. Who's Ayyub?
Don't you have on Facebook?
No. In a minute. Who's Ayyub?
It's on.
It's on Facebook now. Who's Ayyub? حدثنا حسن بن ربيع حدثنا حماد بن زيد عن أيوب. Who's Ayyub?
Ayyub al-Ansari?
What?
No, that's Sahabi.
Nabi Ansari? What?
No, that's Sahabi.
Oh, I thought he said Nabi.
No.
Like, boy, that Mexican food really messed your brain up, man.
No, that.
Ayyub al-Sakhtiyani. Alright. وهشام and Muhammad. وحدثنا فضيل. I know you know who Fudayl is.
Yeah, Ayat.
Alright. عن هشام قال وحدثنا مخلد بن حسين عن هشام and Muhammad ibn Sirin, قال إن هذا العلم دين فانظر عمن تأخذون دينكم. So that this knowledge is what? It's deen. This is the path that you take, the way of life that you live, everything that comes from starts with this knowledge. And how you live your life, and you know how you practice this deen, it starts with the knowledge. So he said, فانظروا عمن تأخذون دينكم. So look at who you take your knowledge from. Be careful about who you take your knowledge from. So if you take your knowledge from a car salesman, or a translator, or a person who's what?
Not fucking.
Not faqih.
That was the one hitter quitter.
And then you're going to pay the price for that, you know, so Allah musta'an. All right, so you have to be really picky about who you take knowledge from.
It's working.
The live stream?
No, like
We'll test it after. We'll pray Isha. Y'all just keep track of the time. We'll pray Isha, then we'll try the live stream again, inshallah. You have to be really picky about who you take knowledge from. If there is questionable behavior with the person, it is better to avoid sitting with the person without speaking about him. We do not speak about people unless it is very clear the person is calling them misguidance. And what is like an example of like questionable behavior?
Shaving his beard.
That's not questionable.
Oh,
That's wallet.
oh yeah, that's clear. Questionable. What would be questionable?
Saying something
Now,
and doing opposite. Saying something and doing different.
That's Walden. Right?
Well, I mean, you're not going to study with many people in this world, are you? You know, but you know, being a little bit like you see him like being a little bit too lenient towards things that he shouldn't be lenient and tolerant towards, and you know, and individuals. It's like, okay, look, like we talked about before. It's one thing when we're dealing with the layman. The layman, he's ignorant. You teach him. You have mercy with him. And then there's another thing now when you're dealing with somebody who's calling to misguidance. And then he'll go around and you get some of these individuals, they sit with these people in misguidance and they sit with them. And what do they say? Oh, I'm trying to give them advice. Are you? Is that how you give advice? You get advice by hanging around with them, eating with them, laughing and joking with them. That's not giving advice. Giving advice is going up and sitting down, telling the people like, look, akhi, this is not right. And getting up and leaving, and not sitting with them until they change their behavior and they stop calling to that misguidance. But you still give them advice. Nobody's saying don't give them advice, but giving advice doesn't entail what? Hanging around with them, watching the football game with them, you know? Well, we ain't gonna go into the other things that people do when they're giving advice, you know? But you get the point, right? I mean, the list is long. So no, giving advice, it means you go to him, you sit down with them and say, look, akhi, you know this is wrong. Here's the adillah, here's the evidence from the Quran and the Sunnah. And you leave. Now, you see, after you've given him advice, that he still continues to do what? To keep doing the same thing. So you go back to him and you say, akhi, I thought we understood this. This is the, you know, what is my evidence wrong? Do you have evidence for what you're doing? Let's discuss this issue. And if he doesn't have any evidence and he says, no, you know, you're right, the evidence is clear. So why you keep doing what you're doing? All right, and that's it. You leave, and now you see, is he still doing it? And he keeps doing it. Now after so many times, what do?
Stay away from it.
You have to avoid him completely. Because he's a person that desires, you understand? Because you're given, once the evidence is presented, but presented in a good way, which means that you don't go and bash the person in the head. You don't go and, you know, your first option is not stop giving them salams and cut them off. No, because you want good for your brother, you know. And like especially in the West, we deal with everybody like they're ignorant. Even if he's an imam in the masjid, we still deal with him like there's so much. I mean, if we looked at that like an alim, like a sheikh, right? Again, I told you, like it was a Sheikh Abdul Hamid al-Hajuri. He was speaking one day, and he said, "This is just the reality. The things that we don't know are always going to be more than the things that we do know." And this is a brother who's been involved in seeking knowledge for more than 2 decades. His whole life, you understand? This is his whole existence. All right, and he's saying this. What about us? What about us giving dawah where we grew up in this society with sins and corruption and everything? That the years that we sat overseas, that we spent overseas, that what? We're just trying to get all this garbage and filth out of our hearts to start really learning the religion. Because most of the Yemenis, like when we studied in Yemen, they didn't go through what we went through. They could go to Yemen. He's never fornicated. He's never smoked weed. He's never drank Old English, you know what I'm saying, and night train, you know. He hasn't done these things. We have. Well, not all of us, but I'm just saying, you know. But the point is that we've gone over there with all this baggage. So we have to clean ourselves out a lot. What?
There was like a loud.
Check your car.
What, the cat's inside it?
Yeah, the cat keeps going in the car.
But there was like loud, and then there was like another one after that.
Yeah, you gotta check the cars, man.
There was 2 parties going on my way here.
But so I mean, we gotta understand that people, huh? People is not gonna be super knowledgeable of everything.
Say it.
All right.
Don't worry about them tonight. They're trying to get the ice cream. If you go down there, they're gonna keep you down there all night.
Stay here, it's safe for you here.
Wait till after class.
Huh? That is kind of smart to try, huh? That's all right, fellas. We got enough people here. We don't gotta worry about it. I'm worried about that gate being open when it's like 2 or 3 people here. But if it's like a whole, you know, so nobody's gonna see a whole bunch of cars in here and come up next to me. Unless somebody wants to get the job broken. All right. So you have to be really picky about who you take knowledge from. If there's questionable behavior with the person, it is better to avoid sitting with the person without speaking about it. We do not speak about people unless it is very clear the person is calling them misguidance. If he has certain issues that are questionable, those issues need to be taken up with a person that has knowledge and can deal with those issues. If you know that the brother is messing up on certain things, again, sit with him and discuss the things. Go to him and present the evidence. Sit down with him. Say, yeah, hey, come on, let's open up the books. Let's go through this. You know, you're a student of knowledge. I'm a student of knowledge. We're all trying to get to the truth, right? So here, let's look for the truth. Where's your evidence for what you're doing? And I'm gonna show you the evidence to show you that what you're doing is wrong. And let's just see. Let's come to the truth. All right, and see what he's gonna do. Is he gonna follow the evidence, or is he gonna continue following his desires? What is he gonna do? Maybe he doesn't know. We can't say that he's following his desires. This might be his understanding. Correct his understanding. Correct his understanding first, and be, lenient with the person in the beginning. Especially here, like I said, there's a difference between even a person who's been a student of knowledge for years. Actually, that doesn't mean he knows every single thing. It doesn't mean that he knows everything, every single issue in Aqidah, that he's perfected it. No, I mean, he could make a mistake. The mistake is not the issue. The mistake is when the person is being corrected with the evidence from the Quran and the Sunnah, and he continues on with the mistake. We're all going to make mistakes. I make a mistake, you come to me and you give me the evidence, and khalas, I correct my behavior. That's praiseworthy. There's nothing shameful about that. That shows that the person is what? Inshallah, Allah hasibuhu. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he's the one that's going to hold him to account. But inshallah, that shows like a level of sincerity. Because he's trying to get to the truth. But if you go and you present him with the Quran and the Sunnah, the evidence, and he still continues on in his ways like he's just completely ignored it, that's shameful. That right now is something, now this person is dangerous. Because if he is that type of person that desires where he's going to reject the Quran and the Sunnah just so he can continue on in his behavior, maybe he's stubborn or whatever the case may be, he's a danger to the Muslims. Because he's going to teach the Muslims this way that he's on. And that's why he said, فَانْظُرُوا what? عَمَّنْ تَأْخُذُونَ دِينَكُمْ. Yeah, so look at the person that you're taking the deen from this person. Your whole way of life, how you practice this religion is going to be taken from that person. So if he's that type of person that's rejecting evidence, ignoring evidence, and then what are you going to do as you're a student with him and you respect him and everything? So what do you start to do? You start to defend him in his misguidance. And then you start to do the same thing. All right, so for you follow the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Abi Muhammad al-Hasan ibn Ali ibn Abi Talib radiyallahu anhu قال حفظت من رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم what? دع ما يريبك إلى ما
لا يريبك
فإن الصدق
أو فإن الصدق هذه البر وإن البر يهدي.
No, what are you? You're going off on another hadith. You're like me starting off in like Surah al-Qiyamah and going to like Surah al-Haqq or something like that.
That's honeymoon brain.
فإن الصدق طمأنينة والكذب ريبة. All right. So like he said, I memorized from the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to leave off that which you doubt, for that which you don't doubt. فَإِنَّ الصِّدْقِ, for verily truthfulness and honesty is طمأنينة. You're comfortable. When you speak the truth, you're comfortable. You know what I'm saying? Because you don't have to remember. Liars, they don't have comfort, because why? They told him a story, then he told him a story, then he's got to remember, well, I told him this, but I told him that, and I told, that's not, you can't relax like that. And that's why he said, well, kadhib what? Yeah, it's doubt, because you're always constantly doubting, like, what did I say here? What did I say to him? You have no certainty. But, when you speak the truth, khalas, you speak and you're just, clear conscience, no nothing, if somebody comes back and tells you 2 weeks later, hey, you tell me that story again, you got no problem to tell them the story again, because you never lied in the first place, right? Khalas, All right, so any doubt that you have, leave it for that which you do not doubt, and that includes the people that you take knowledge from. If you have any doubt with the person, what? Leave it. Yeah, leave it. However, a person needs to be able to distinguish between something doubtful and whisperings of the shaitan. All right, because again, does he really have doubtful behavior, or is it something personal that you don't like about him? Or maybe he's too rough and you don't like the way that he deals with students. Or maybe he, because we had one brother, he didn't want to study in the class. Why? Because he didn't want to be called on. So he's going to start to find any excuse not to come into the class. Why? You don't want somebody testing your understanding. You want to sit in the class and you just want to just listen, like I'm a YouTube video, and I'm not going to ask you like, okay, what about this and what about this, or tell you to stand up and recite the hadith from memory. So if you don't want to do that, then what is that? That's whisperings of shaitan, akhi. That's not a substantial, doubt.
That's him, brother. He didn't memorize his amma, and he doesn't know the
Well,
names
we're
and
not
attributes
getting
of
into a
Allah.
conversation about him. I'm just saying that the issue is like, this is reality. This is the type of wasawis. Because the shaitan is trying to keep the brother from benefiting. He's trying to keep him from benefiting. And you have that choice of obedience or disobedience. Your obedience is to Allah, and you say, no, I don't care. He can ask me as much as he wants. Well, there's no embarrassment here. We're all brothers. What do you think? You think that I'm going to sit here and then you make a mistake and information, and we're all going to laugh at you? We're not kuffar. You know what I'm saying? It's not the educational system in third grade or something. We're going to start calling you names. So there's no reason for a person to have that except for what? The shaitan is all up in the brother's ear, bothering him. So you gotta ignore that. It's whisperings of the shaitan. No, you go.
No, look who we have today.
Oh yeah, you gotta call the adhan.
You remember you said about the windows, they were about to shatter?
Outside?
Yeah, because one time you called the adhan outside, and it's just like you were trying to make sure that all of West Side Fresno heard that adhan. All right. So any doubt that you have, leave it for that which you do not doubt, and that includes the people that you take knowledge from. However, a person needs to be able to distinguish between something doubtful and whisperings of the shaitan. A doubt arises because of issues related to deen. Whisperings of shaitan are rooted in personal issues. Another aspect of finding a teacher is searching for a teacher that is well versed in a particular science that you want to study. All right, because not every sheikh is, every sheikh is going to have functional knowledge of everything. But there's going to be the one or two sciences that the person went deep into, because you only have one lifetime, akhi. And you got to understand, to get really, really strong in certain sciences, it takes years, man. It's going to take 5 or 6 years. So you want to sit there and say, okay, I want to get really strong in the science of hadith. How are you going to do that? That's not going to be, you can't sit down for like 12 months in a year and get strong. No, you can get a functional knowledge of the science of hadith. But for you to go through the chains and narrations and read through all these books of hadith and read through all the books of Jarh wa Ta'dil and go through all the kalam, that takes 6, 7, 8, 9 years just in that science alone. You understand? So those are the people that you go to for the science of hadith. Now you don't go if you're trying to go deep into the science of hadith. That's who you want to study with. You don't want to go and study with a guy who studied the science of hadith for 1 year and he studied usul al-fiqh for like 6 years. No, you go study usul al-fiqh with him. That's the science that he focused on. That's what you study. So like back in the days when like we had Sheikh Mubil, Sheikh Al-Uthaymeen, rahimahumullah. If I want to study Usul al-Fiqh, who am I going to go to? Yeah, if I want to study Hadith, who do I go to? That's it. You know, because that was their takhassus. That was what they focused on. Not saying that Sheikh Mubil doesn't know Usul al-Fiqh, he does. Sheikh Mubil, rahimahullah, used to quote from Irshad al-Fuhul from his memory. That's no joke. That's not a small task for a person to have read Irshad al-Fuhul so much. And does anybody know what this book is?
It's a book from where's it? Amir Sanani.
Nope.
Shokani.
Shokani.
Yeah, Shokani. Yeah, Shokani.
But it's one of the major muraji of Usul al-Fiqh.
What is it called again?
Irshad al-Fuhul. Shokani.
Windows are gonna break.
All right. So another aspect of finding a teacher is searching for a teacher that's well versed in a particular science that you want to study. If you're studying the science of hadith, you want to study with a sheikh that focuses on that specific science. You can find a lot of students and sheikhs that have fundamental knowledge of the science of hadith, but only students that really focus on that subject can teach you properly. You want to study with the person who is known for teaching that science. The same goes for Nahu, Usul al-Fiqh, Fiqh, Aqidah, etc. Because I mean, everybody has to study the correct Aqidah, but that doesn't mean that everybody can teach it. You know, and especially when we're talking about the explanation of Sharh al-Tahawiyya, or we're talking about Risalat al-Tadmuriyya, or we're talking about like al-Hamawiyya, that takes a person, like it's one thing to sit down and read a book and understand it, and it's another thing to like take that book and be able to teach it and get other people to understand it. It's a big difference. And if you don't understand the difference, do it. Try it.
Sorry.
You know, you go memorize al-Usul al-Thalatha, you study it, and you understand it, read a sharh of al-Usul al-Thalatha, and then what? And then go teach it. And then look at the difference. And see if the teaching that you do matches up with the explanation that you read. It's not. Because the person who explained that book is what? He studied all those major books above that. You know, he's here, but he's teaching here. You're here, studying here, and you're teaching here. You don't have all those other resources in your head because you haven't done that research yet. So that's why you see there's a big difference, you know. So you go to the person who's well versed in that science. Once you find the teacher that you are looking for, try to find out if he has any specific rules when he teaches. For example, some teachers hate students taking notes while in class. You will find this in Mauritania. In Mauritania, you have to shut up, listen, and memorize what the sheikh is saying. And then once you leave, then you can go and write it down. And then you go with another student, you sit with another student who studied with that sheikh before to make sure that what? That you got it right, you know. I know one brother, he told me, because he studied with Sheikh Muhammad Salam, rahimahullah. And he said that when he was studying Al-Fiyat ibn Malik, that they used to leave. When they used to leave the explanation of Al-Fiyat, because they would go and recite like 3 to 5 lines of Sheikh Muhammad Salam, rahimahullah, and he would explain it, and they would go out, they would write it down, but they want to make sure that they want to test to see like where the Sheikh's getting it from, right? So they were opening up Al-Ashmuni, the Sharh of Al-Fiyat ibn Malik, by Al-Ashmuni, which is it's a very advanced explanation of Al-Fiyat, like one of the least, like Ibn Aqil is probably one of the easier ones, and then Awdah al-Masalik, but Al-Ashmuni is much more advanced. And he said that they would open up like Al-Ashmuni, and they would read through the explanation that the Sheikh gave them, and they would find it in Al-Ashmuni what? Word for word. And I personally, I have done this because I sat with a Sheikh from when he was teaching us in Al-Ajrumiyah. And I wanted to go back and see where he got all his ta'rifat from when he was giving us in the lesson. Because he gave the brother that was with me, he gave him permission to record it. So that, because he was just giving out too much information. I'm like, dude, we're not going to memorize that, man. You know what I'm saying? Because we can only study with him so much throughout the week. So he tried to give us more. So he gave us permission to record it. So then we would take the recording and then we would write down all the notes. I would go home and I would say, like, let me see where he got all this information from. So I go to Ibn Aqil, I find some of it. I go to Awdah al-Masalik, I find some of it. Keep in mind, he's teaching us Al-Ajrumiyah. And I go to the Sharh of Kafiyat ibn Hajib. And I found I had to go through all these different resources. And every place that I saw where he got the information from, guess what? Word for word. Word for word. And if it wasn't word for word, it's because it was a print mistake. It wasn't a mistake in his memory. You understand? So, yeah, I mean, that's so along with time. Those are some serious people.
Wow.
So they really focus on that memorization. They want you to sit in the class and they want you to memorize what he's saying. And that's why they only take a little bit at a time. So you can go home, you can write it down, you can go back and check the resources, check with other students, make sure that you got it right, then you memorize that lesson, and you go back the next day, you read him the next 3 lines, and he'll do the same, and he just until you finish the book. All right. So he said, once you find the teacher that you're looking, all right, right there. All right, they want the student to listen with all of his attention. And once the class is over, the student leaves and writes all he remembers from the sheikh. Other teachers do not like you recording. If your teacher is one of those that hates recording, you will have to get his permission to record. If he allows you to record with the condition that you do not share it with anybody, obey his condition. That's an amanah. All right, and, if he says don't, you can record it, but it's only for you. That's it. It's only for you. Somebody else wants to, well, let me just hear. Here's the notes. You want to see the notes? There's the notes. Let them see the notes, but you have to, that's a condition. You fulfill your conditions. That's a contractual obligation now. All right. You also want to know if the teacher is interactive with the students. Asking questions and checking their understanding. You want a teacher that is interactive. Teachers that just sit there and explain are a bit boring. Moreover, you don't get tested with the explainers. You need a teacher that is going to put you on the spot and ask you questions to test your understanding. If you want a teacher that drones on and on, you can watch videos on YouTube, right? And unfortunately, this is the sad reality of studying in Saudi. I sat with one sheikh, and it was because it was a small sitting. It was like 3 or 4 people, and I don't even remember the sheikh's name, honestly. Because he was teaching tafsir. And that was the only time where I remember in Saudi where he's actually asking questions and testing understanding. But then they found out that I studied in Damaj, and then the class stopped, and then they all started asking me questions. So it got kind of annoying, so I didn't even go back and sit with them again. I'm like, nah, man, why y'all focusing on me? Focus on the class. I'm here to study with y'all. I'm not here to, y'all start asking me all these questions. He's here, he's teaching. So that interaction thing, it didn't work out in a good way because it just kind of took away from the class. They got all curious, and in the class, there was no benefit. But a lot of the shiuch, they just kind of sit there, they have the notes, they go, they teach, and they get up and they leave. That's it. And the manage is like the exact opposite. You're going to start the class off with what? Questions. That's right away. The sheikh, the teacher, or whoever you're with, is going to start asking you questions. When I was studying Ibn Aqil with the Sheikh Qa'id Sha'lan in Yemen, same thing. He start off the class. Read the first line of Al-Fiyah. Give me the Arab. All right, what's this mean? All right, that's not right. Fix it. And he'll keep making you do it, and you're like, come on, man, skip me, go to the next person. He's like, no, I'm not skipping nobody. It's your turn today. You do it. And he'll make you sit there until you get it. And the other people might try to help you out because they want you to hurry up because the class is going. And he does that with every single thing. Like the next thing comes up, there's a poem, like a line of poetry. He said, give me the Arab. Come on, you, next. And he'll keep doing that over and over and over again throughout the whole entire class to test you. So what happens is you start, when you're getting tested like that, you're learning, it just it increases, I won't even say tenfold, I would say 50, 60-fold. Because keep in mind, the class was after Fajr. So that means now I got to get up 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm opening up Ibn Aqil. I'm going through I got Khalid al-Azhari, he did the Arab of Al-Fiyat ibn Malik, and I got that open, I got Ibn Aqil open, I'm going through this, and I got Mutamima open over here, and I'm looking at this, and all this now to get ready for what? Because I know he's going to ask, So you go prepared, but if you're going and sitting there with a guy who's just and never asking any questions, what happens? You can sit there and go there and not even understand what he's saying. And guess what? Once you finish the class, they're going to give you a certificate that you studied this with this sheikh and you've completed this course, and you can come back to America and say, hey, look at me, I studied with Fulan. And if nobody tested you, your understanding. I would rather forget the certificate. I don't care about your certificate. I got a certificate from the Sheikh, and Sheikh Asardi, Sheikh Shuwair. I got a certificate from him. I don't care about that certificate. All I care about is what?
No.
The benefit, that you benefit from the person, that you get the knowledge of what he's trying to teach. Forget a piece of paper. Piece of paper, good. You know, like I told the brothers when we get the certificate, I said, good, we got something to wrap a shawarma up with. You know, you can wrap the shawarma up with it. You know, that's all it's good for. Doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean that you understood the book. It doesn't mean that you can teach the book. So, but when you get tested like that, whew, go to class unprepared. Go to class unprepared. Well, that's the worst day of your life. That's the worst day of your life. And then you're sitting there stuck on stupid. You don't know where to go. And you're looking left, like, you don't look at left, right, answer the question. And he just won't let you, he will not let you budge. He will not let you cower out. He will not let you do anything. He's like, you're going to finish this. Come on. And he'll tell me, like he used to tell me at first, he's like, I'll help you. Come on, let's do it. Let's do this. I'm like, Sheikh, man, I can't, you know, like, shut up. Do it. I'm going to help you. And then we get through it. But then after, like, what? After a week or two, give me that up. You're rolling now. You know, you're rolling. So you have to look at, like, for that interactive type of class. All right, should we stop here? Like, how long is this chapter?
We're good. It's 8:20.
Huh?
It's 8:20.
All right, so we'll stop here, inshallah. Just, somebody got a pen.